Hi guys, today we're going to be playing with, I guess the second holiday release of the season, and I'm really excited. I've said before, I'm happy that we're done with Halloween. I don't really care for the Halloween releases, but the Christmas releases, I'm all about. So we have two palettes here from Simply Posh. There is a face palette and a eyeshadow palette. I'll show you the eyeshadow palette first, and it's called the Cozy Cabin palette. This is so beautiful. I really like the color story of this. I think it's definitely very cozy and very fall inspired. I like the layout of this. I like that there is such a good variety of colors. There's so much you can do with this palette. I'm sadly only gonna have time to do 2 looks for you because there are other things that are also coming out that I need to make sure I get the videos up with. But just trust me when I say this is a beautiful palette, and they did say that they have improved their shimmer formula because in the past couple of palettes there were some issues with like just the shimmers being a little bit too hard pressed, and I can definitely say that they have fixed the issue because these shimmers are absolutely stunning. And what I remember from like the good Simply Posh shimmers, these are even better. Like these are amazing. Like this whole palette, quality wise, A+. They also came out with a cheek palette, which is called the Cozy Up palette. It has the same packaging on the outside, and it has 4 blushes and 4 highlighters. I'm gonna apply this so you can see how they apply, and I feel like I have more thoughts on this than I do on the palette, honestly, because they're not my absolute favorites. I think that the blushes are very pigmented. I think kind of like Blend Bunny and Menagerie. If you like those formulas, you're gonna love these. I think for myself, they're maybe a little bit too pigmented, but I also need more time to play with this because I feel like you can easily mix and match and be able to get like really, really nice colors out of this. I could even see mixing like the blushes together with the highlighters to get sort of a shimmery blush. I don't know if that would work, but if it would, that would look really beautiful. So yeah, I feel like the highlighters they're nice. They're not my favorites. Let's just go ahead and apply this so I can show you what I mean. So I haven't used this shade yet. I'm scared to use these because they're very pigmented, like I said. So these are like my safe zone. This one I used in the other look that you'll see after. So I'm gonna try this for today's look. It's called Snug. Definitely wouldn't recommend using a natural hair brush with these just because, like I said, they are very, very pigmented. So I think this is definitely going to be the most kind of like wearable and easy to use shade. See, like that looks really nice. I like that a lot. I'm just a little bit hesitant to want to dip into the darker shades, which it's good that they have shades that are, you know, darker and pigmented because it will show up on deeper skin tones. But I feel like maybe they could have done 2 palettes instead because I'm not sure that everyone's going to be able to use all the shades in this. And that is definitely a pet peeve that I have with just face palettes in general. It's tough to make a face palette that is inclusive, but also something that everyone's gonna be able to use every shade because that's just almost impossible. So I feel like a lot of the time brands are just better off like making 2 different ones so that the people who buy them can actually use all the shades in the palette. Of course, you could use these as like, you know, eyeshadows and stuff too, but that's just not really my thing. But like that is a beautiful color. That went on really, really nicely. Let's see. I think I used this one for yesterday's look and it was okay. I feel like the formula is a little almost too like metallic. It almost leaves a cast without it like being the wrong color. I don't know if that makes sense, but it almost just sort of sits on top of the skin and doesn't blend in properly. That's just like how I feel about this formula so far. I'm gonna go in with a bit of, I guess I'll try this shade. I'm just not really sure. I don't know, let's just try it anyway and just kind of see. I'm using a very, very fluffy brush because I don't want kind of too much of this. And you can tell it's definitely nice and shiny, but again, I feel like I can see it, and I don't think it's because it's too dark for me. It's just because of the formula. Like, it's just not my favorite highlighting formula, I gotta be honest, but I do think that a lot of people would like this, but I definitely prefer something that's a little more iridescent in a way. I feel like this is almost just too pigment. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just don't feel like it blends into the skin as nicely as I would like. You can just see sort of the separation between the blush and the highlighter, and it just doesn't blend that well. I don't know. It could just be me. Watch other reviews on this and see what other people say, but I would say this formula just Yeah, see, like it just kind of leaves a bit of a cast here. And maybe this color is just too dark for me, but then again, it goes back to like, I'm not gonna be able to use all the shades in this palette, even though it's beautiful. Like, I feel like only this shade really is suitable for my skin tone. Like, this one is definitely way too light. These ones are gonna be too dark. So really, I can only use these shades, you know, like I can mix these two together. I can maybe mix these two together, but then I feel like it would just leave too much of a white cast. Yeah, I'm just not loving how the highlighter looks on my skin. I don't know. It could just be me. Like I said, watch other people's reviews and see what they say about this palette as well. Let's go ahead and get into the eyeshadows though. I'm definitely more excited for the eyeshadows because I had such a good time with the first look, and I know I'm gonna have a good time with this look as well. These palettes are launching on the 6th. I want to say 3 p.m. CST is what I read. I also do have an affiliated code with the brand. It's just Annette if you are interested in picking any of these up. I am like so impressed by their palette. I gotta say, like, this eyeshadow palette is probably now my favorite palette from them because it makes me sad that it's limited edition, and I feel that way about like all the holiday palettes because I feel like brands just do such a good job when it comes to holiday palettes, and they always end up being limited edition, and then people are just upset that they can't get them because they weren't able to get them like the first go around for whatever reason. So let's see. I want to today, originally I sat down to film this and I was wearing a very bright red sweater, and I was like, I kind of want to use this side of the palette, so that's not going to work, so I changed. I have used a lot of these in the first look that you will see after, but I think I mostly want to focus on sort of these like bluish tones here. This green is so beautiful, by the way. I did use that already. So I think we're gonna do, I could really just go with this row and then a little bit of this blue, maybe that could be nice. I have used this blue already though, so, and I really want to pull in this shade. I'm not sure how to do that is the thing. What if I use this one together with this one? That might be crazy, and I'm not sure how those are gonna blend together, but maybe we could try it anyway because I really want to use this and it's just gonna go well with this shade. So we're gonna try that. We're gonna start with this one as the transition shade. This is the shade called Mistletoe, and I'm gonna put that pretty much in the whole crease, but I'm not gonna pull it like all the way out because I don't want to layer this one too much with the other shade just in case they end up getting a little bit muddy. I want to try to keep them as separated as I'm able to. This is a really, really, really pretty color, and I don't have a lot of this color, I feel like, in my collection. It's not a color that you see a lot in palettes. The matte formula in this palette is really nice. It's definitely more on the buildable side. I do feel like I have to dip into the pan maybe a couple more times than I would with other brands, but the shadows build so beautifully that I really don't mind, and it just gives you the option to use certain shades as transition shades, or they're just very easy to share out. So I think they're a very user-friendly formula if you're someone who's maybe, you know, newer to colorful makeup, or you get easily intimidated by colorful shades because you feel like they're too pigmented. But I think that this is the kind of formula that a lot of people would get along with. So that looks really nice. I'm gonna leave it kind of like this for now with the shade, and then go in with the deepening shade, and we're gonna see if I'm able to get a good blend. So I'm gonna dip into this shade, which is the purple. This one is called Wintry. That is definitely a very wintry shade. And like I said, I don't really want to over blend these shades, but I think this is blue based enough and the other one is green based enough that they shouldn't muddy up too badly. But I just want to sort of put them down next to each other and see before I go in and really start blending. But this is a beautiful color. I feel like this is leaning a little bit more blue toned on my eyes than it is in the pan, but that also could be the undertone of my eyeshadow primer. That does make a difference in how certain colors apply, but that looks really nice. I'm just gonna gently tap these over each other. Again, I don't want to over blend, but I do want to have a bit of a blend, and I think that looks really nice. Yeah, I like how that is looking a lot. I'm just gonna work on the edge of the shadow, make sure I get a good blend with this, and I'm probably just gonna do the same underneath my eye as well. So that looks really nice. I am tempted to deepen it up just a tiny amount just because I want to see how this shade layers too. So I'm going to take some of this shade as well. I think these are gonna work nicely together. This is a shade called Snowfall. And I'm not gonna do a lot of this. I just wanna do a bit just on the very outer corner of my eye, just to see if this builds well, see if I'm able to get a little bit more depth. And I think that did exactly what I wanted to do. It's quite subtle, but the shade is definitely showing up on the eyes. And again, it's building very nicely. It's being super smooth on top of that other color, and it just adds a little bit more depth, just the way that I wanted it to. Not too much, but just enough that you can see it. I was just looking at the photo on my phone that I took of the first look that I did, and it turns out I did not use the blue shimmer. So we are going to use the blue shimmer, but I am going to put on some of my NYX glitter primer first. So we're going to use the blue shimmer and then the sort of yellowy greeny duochrome, because I just cannot help myself. Like I used a tiniest amount of that on my lower lash line in the first look, but it wasn't enough. Like I needed basically all over my lid. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start with this shade, which it looks so pretty. Oh, I love these kind of shades so much. This is the shade called Festive, and I can definitely see why this is the oh, look at that. I can definitely see why they named this Festive. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put that all over my lid except for the very outer corner, and I'm gonna use a little bit of the blue shimmer there as well. That is so, I'm like almost speechless. Like I love that so much. That is beautiful. Like I love that this is such a transformative shade. You can really use this with so many of the different mattes in this palette, and it's gonna pull differently depending on what you pair it with, because you can see in the palette it's paired like here with the warm tones, but it works so nicely with the cool tones as well because of the shift in it. So if you had paired this together with this, I think the orange shift in this is going to come out a lot more. So again, like you see, it just depends what you pair. It's such a beautiful shade. I really love that. Definitely recommend using these with a glitter primer or a tacky base, or spraying your brush or something though, because that's when you really get the magic out of these. Like I couldn't imagine this going on as nicely just on a dry lid, but oh, that looks so good. I love that. Okay, let's do a little bit of the blue. I don't want too much. I'm just gonna take some of this shade right here, which is called Lights, and we're just gonna put some of that right in between the matte and the shimmer. Also such a pretty shade. Oh, I like this color combination a lot. There's definitely something about a green and blue look that just gets me going every single time. Like I don't think I've ever done a green and blue look that I didn't end up liking. Just taking a little bit more of the shade Snowfall, which was the darkest matte, and just making sure that I get a good blend between the mattes and the shimmers. And this is all I'm gonna do for the look. Maybe I'll do a bit of blue right here as well, actually. I'm gonna spray that a little bit since I don't have anything tacky underneath my eye, and I'm just gonna put that right here. You guys know how I feel about having a little shimmer on the front portion of my lower lash line. I feel like it just really makes any eye look pop, and I think this is gonna be it. So I'm just gonna pop on some lashes and eyeliner real quick. So this is the final look. I love how this turned out. Like this color combination, it just feels so me. Like I love blue eyeshadow. I can't help it. I think it looks beautiful. So let me go ahead and show you the other look that I've done with this eyeshadow palette as well, so you can see a bit more variety, because I definitely feel like the two looks that I did were completely different, and that's exactly what I wanted. And I feel like that is what you can get out of this palette. You can get so many different looks out of this. There are so many color combinations you can do. You can do warm tone, you can do cool tone, you can mix the two. You can really have a lot of fun with this palette. And I think the formulas in here are really nice. Like I said before, the mattes are definitely on the buildable side. They're not super pigmented straight off the bat, but they do build and blend very, very nicely. The shimmers are very smooth, very sparkly, very metallic. Some are shifty, some are more of like a basic shimmer, but they're so beautiful. And I'm just, I love this palette so much. Like this is gonna be very, very high in my best of the year ranking. I can already tell you that, because I think that this is a palette that I can see myself reaching for a lot. And again, I'm just so sad that this is limited edition. I really wish it wasn't, but I get it. Like, you know, when they come out with holiday palettes, they can't really be around all year. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be buying a Christmas palette in July. So like it makes sense, but at the same time, the holiday palettes that come out are always so good. So yeah, I'm very happy that I have this palette in my collection. Very grateful to the brand for sending it to me. The face palette, like I said before, it's just not my favorite, but I do want to keep playing with it a little bit. I do think that there are things that I can do to make this work a little bit better for me. I can't really see myself using the highlighters on their own again, but I'm gonna try to sort of mix the highlighters together with the blushes to create more of that like glowy blush and see how that turns out. I'm not sure if it's really gonna work, but I'm gonna give it a go and see if that's something that I might be able to do with this palette. Also, this palette is magnetic, just something to keep in mind, which is nice if you have, you know, other blushes or highlighters in this size. You can maybe switch them out and use those if there are a couple of shades in here that you're not going to be able to use, because there are definitely shades in this palette that I'm not going to be able to use because they're just a little too dark, a little too intense. The blushes, I feel like I could make work, even the darker ones, if I mix them with sort of a nude colored powder or something like that. Not a translucent, not a translucent powder. If I mix it with just like a skin colored powder, that's what I've been doing with the Menagerie Menagerie blushes when I use those, because those are so pigmented that I'll dip my brush into a pressed powder and then dip the brush into the blush and kind of do it that way, and it tones it down. So maybe I can do that with these blushes as well, even though that is an extra step that I just prefer not to do. But take this review for what you want. This might be exactly what you're looking for in a face palette, and I don't think it looks bad. I like the color that I used today. The highlighter, I'm just not sure of. Like, I feel like it looks better on camera than it does in real life, because it almost just looks a little like disconnected to the rest of my, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, those are going to be my thoughts on these palettes. Don't forget, they do launch on the 6th at 3 p.m. CST. I'll have the information down below in my description box, as always, as well as a link to the website where you can buy this. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see some more Simply Posh content, I do have a playlist. I'll put that right there. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.